Welcome to the Herbal Shaman podcast, your source for conversations on the spiritual and shamanic uses of cannabis, cactus, mushrooms, and other herbs to help heal your spirit. And now, here is your host, Michael.
All right. Welcome. Namaste. How the hell you doing? Welcome to the show. I'm Michael. And this is the Herbal Shaman podcast. And before I do anything else or talk about anything else, I'm going to get the right frame of mind, and I'm going to take a hit off of this THCA vape from Baked. It is a 3 milliliter vape. I believe this is OG Kush, which is an indica-based strain that they're trying to emulate with this, because it's a legal variety derived from federally legal hemp, not to be confused with the illegal variety of cannabis, which is the stuff that isn't illegal in California, ironically, that you can get from a dispensary. I just prefer not to have to show a California state ID in order to gain entry into one of these dispensaries, just so I can have the privilege of buying something that I can get at the liquor store for cheaper and without any kind of hassles. So here's to this. And besides, our sponsor sells vapes like this. Again, the variety that's legal in nearly all 50 states. There's a few. You might want to check your local laws to see how they treat cannabinoid, hemp-derived cannabinoids. But as I said, in most states it's legal. So here we go. Has a weird effect with that background filter on. Anyway, all right. As I said, this is the Herbal Shaman podcast. And does that make me the Herbal Shaman? Or does that make me a Herbal Shaman? Or does that make you the Herbal Shaman? Well, I guess that's one of the things we'll have to decide as the show progresses. Just by matter of this being the first show, I guess I'll describe myself a bit. My name's Michael, and I have been a regular user of cannabis since I was about 18 years old, and I am now 53 years old. And I can say that I have never in my life particularly felt like I was abusing it, that I never felt like it was a drug. I always went into, in fact, I would say this is true of nearly all illegal drugs that I did partake in, with a few notable exceptions that I'm not going to get into right now. But every drug that I used, I researched. I looked into what were the effects of cannabis, what were the good effects, what were the bad effects, what was the upside, what were the downsides, what were the known risks, what were the known side effects. I did this with psilocybin mushrooms as well, and I did this with other substances like ayahuasca as well. So I had thoroughly researched this about as much as I could. I mean, I had actually had been collecting and reading uh, issues of High Times magazine before I'd ever smoked my first joint. I know it sounds ridiculous, but it's true. Um, because for a long time before that, I was interested in changing my consciousness. I started to learn things like self hypnosis when I was in, I think, like fourth grade, maybe fifth grade, because I was interested in using it to help me concentrate, help me learn. I always felt like I wasn't learning fast enough, or that I always had to, I always felt dumb, even though everybody convinced me that I was smart. And then as soon as I was convinced that I was smart, everybody started to accuse me of being an idiot. So, you know, that's a lesson in humility right there. Um, but yeah, I'd say that I've never felt like I was a typical person mentally or emotionally or psychologically. I've since a very early age, I believed in both the reality and um, the logic of science, and how I understood that that was the basis of our world, and the that is what determines what is real and what isn't real. But at the same time, I always had this intuitive sense that magic was real too, that the mind was as important to reality as reality was important to the mind. And that intuitive sense had always informed my interests. And as I said, I learned self hypnosis and actually learned how to hypnotize other people. By the time I was in fifth grade, I could hypnotize other people. I regularly did hypnosis on my aunt because she had uh, very bad migraines. And it was the only thing that even put a dent in the pain was putting her in a hypnotic state. About that same time, I got into yoga and meditation because around that same time, again, my aunt was into meditation because she used to watch a show on PBS called Yoga and Meditation, and I think the person's name was Hiddleman. I think his name was John Hiddleman. I could be wrong on that, but I learned the basics of yoga, of things like pranayama and and different asanas for sitting in the different positions, and the idea of chakras, um, and the fact that the body had an energy system, as well as my aunt was also a registered nurse, but she had also taken things like shiatsu, which is Japanese pressure points, it's like acupuncture, but with but it was a Japanese innovation, and a lot of times it was done with the feet and with the back. It was a type of massage, shiatsu massage, but it was based on energy centers and energy meridians. And I had read some of her books, and she was a nurse, and I said, like, wait a second, she's this she's practicing this thing that does energy meridians. That's not scientific, but it works. And you know, self hypnosis and hypnosis isn't really particularly scientific either. I mean, they dress it up as science and psychology, but it's really more magic than it is science. And I bet I just made a whole bunch of people who are trained hypnotists really uncomfortable when I said that. Uh, but you know, as I got older, I started to realize that there were techniques, there were substances, there were not only were there behaviors, not only were there techniques for changing your consciousness, like with meditation, but there were also substances. There were psychedelics. Uh, um, there were psychoactive substances, both natural and man-made, that would put you in very interesting states of mind. And it struck me very early on how these states of mind would also lead to paranormal experiences. And these are the same paranormal experiences, or the same, at least they seemed like the same, they seemed similar to the kind of paranormal experiences that I was trying to achieve and actually achieving as a result of practicing things like meditation, and then eventually things like astral projection, and my interest turned towards more deeply mystical types of things, and even on the whole idea of the occult. I started to delve into things like witchcraft and Western ritual magic. I would read the works of Aleister Crowley and Israel Regardie, and then I stumbled upon the works of Carlos Castaneda, and the whole idea of, you know, cactus and mushrooms and datura as different chemicals and different things that can be used to put yourself in different shamanic states. And that's got me on a whole path of shamanism and integrating things like hypnosis, which I had been learning, I'd been practicing for years. By the time I was a teenager, I'd already been practicing hypnosis for years. And the whole idea of listening to, you know, drumming as a way of getting you into an altered state, but then also possibly using other substances. Now, it wasn't until I was well into my 20s that things like ayahuasca and mushrooms became available at all. 20s and even 30s. But I was able to get my hands on cannabis, and cannabis was the first thing that actually gave me hallucinogenic um, experiences. You know, this was back in the early, actually back in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. And yeah, cannabis was powerful. I'll tell you what, people talk about how powerful cannabis is now. Now, it could be because over the years I've gotten used to it, and I've also developed quite a tolerance for it. But I remember, I remember smoking some quite powerful cannabis in the late 80s, like 89, maybe 1990, that made me hallucinate. And when I say hallucinate, I mean this is coming from somebody who has, in the interim times, tried very powerful hallucinogens like, you know, San Pedro and hallucinogenic mushrooms of various kinds, ayahuasca, and even salvia divinorum, which is by all accounts one of the most powerful natural psychedelics there is. Uh, and and some of the some of the hallucinations I had as a result of just smoking cannabis. That's it. This was just, if I remember correctly, it was what was it? ATF, which I believe stands for Alaskan Thunderfuck. Man, oh, that stuff just knocked me for a loop. I was like 19, I think, and I was watching, I think, a Cheech and Chong movie, and I started to notice things in the background, in the different scenes in the background, and it looked like people in the background, like smoking weed in the background of the scenes. That the main characters in the front, you know, talking to each other, but in the background, I'd see things. It's like, hey, I never noticed that. And then I'd go back and watch the movie again when I was sober, and I realized, nope, I was completely hallucinating those things. So that was pretty powerful. I don't hallucinate like that, at least not unless I'm trying to. You know, I can totally hallucinate on purpose now. So maybe it's a change in my brain structure as much as anything else. But I'll tell you something. Anybody who says that cannabis is not a psychedelic or does not have the capability of giving you a psychedelic or hallucinogenic experience clearly is doing it wrong. Because, and that was just me smoking it. Forget about, you know, consuming it as an edible, because you consume it as an edible. And I think even now, even with as long as I've done it, you give me a good sized edible, like, you know, 100 milligrams or more. Give me like a 250 milligram edible. I'm gone, baby. Gone. So, and that's what I use for ritual purposes, for doing, you know, deep journey work where I'm going to be, you know, like for an hour or more, sometimes a couple hours of just doing like vision work. I would generally use edibles. Now, if I'm doing something that is divinatory, I'm doing a divination, or I'm doing a consultation with a, if I'm just doing personal consultatory work where I'm consulting with my power animal, or I'm consulting with one of my other allies, or I'm doing some other kind of manifestation work, or maybe I'm trying to get information about a particular situation, uh, you know, I probably will just uh, use a smoking mixture of one kind or another. Uh, and I don't just use cannabis. And as a matter of fact, for a lot of my practices, I don't use cannabis at all. Um, but for things like meditative work, and for doing healing journey work, either when I'm trying to do something in my own life or I'm doing a healing journey for somebody else, I will usually use a pretty powerful, pretty psychedelic formulation of cannabis that I'll then consume as an edible, or as a tincture. I might, or something that I might drink. Is I might put it in something like a slightly alcoholic beverage, just so that it'll dissolve, and then I'll drink it, which will give you a rapid onset, but then it will give you a pretty consistent length of time of around 2 to 3 hours, which is perfect for deep healing work and deep like psychological exploration. Like if you're doing shadow work, I've found that sort of deep psychological shadow work is something that is very um, it's something that you require, something that lets you go pretty deep and pretty close to being in not a catatonic state, but like we're talking about the worst case of couch lock you've ever had, you know. So you don't want to get up. You want to stay there and ride it out for the whole journey. And that's part of the thing. It's like a somatic relaxation along with an openness in the psyche and an emotional openness. There's a formulation that allows you to open up the energy centers that you need to in order to be able to fully explore and heal everything you need to explore and heal. So, with that being said, again, what I wanted to say is I don't just use cannabis. I will use other herbs as well. As a matter of fact, it's really synergistic when you mix cannabis with other herbs. Cannabis just makes other herbs stronger. It's it. There's nothing really that you can add to cannabis that'll make cannabis um, more powerful from the standpoint of it being like either hallucinogenic or being just having its natural um, psychoactive effects. There's nothing that you can add to cannabis that'll make it more psychoactive. I mean, except for possibly adding another psychoactive. You have mushrooms with cannabis. You're going to have the mushroom on top of the cannabis, but it's not going to make the cannabis more powerful. Cannabis, on the other hand, has a tendency of making other herbs more powerful, more effective, potentiates them. Like, for instance, pain relievers like aspirin or acetaminophen or things like that, naproxen. If you take them while you're under the influence of cannabis, many times the pain relieving, the anti-inflammatory properties will be magnified. At least that's in my experience. Understand, this isn't. I'm not giving you medical advice. I'm giving you shamanic advice, and from a shamanic point of view, you have to view a lot of this stuff as being perception and metaphorical, and what you perceive to be true while you are in your shamanic state, right? So this is not medical advice. This isn't no financial advice, no medical advice, no legal advice. You won't get any of that here. This is just spiritual advice. This is spiritual healing. This is emotional healing. This is being able to, get direct contact with the subconscious, right? The subconscious is the portal to the spirit realm. It's the portal to where the power is. The power is in the subconscious mind. That's where the power to heal is. That's where the power to harm is. That's if you got stage 4 cancer and you want to heal without drugs or chemotherapy or other things, then you have to go into that subconscious mind and figure out what it is in your subconscious that's making your body kill itself, because that's what cancer is. It's your body killing itself. You have to figure out what that is, and you have to change it. You have to heal it. You have to extract it. You have to do whatever you need to do to bring that out of the darkness of the subconscious into the light of consciousness. Now, does that mean that you'll heal your cancer? I don't know. I just know that you don't really permanently heal from cancer until you get at that thing that's making you want to die, right? And sometimes that thing gets healed just by way of you working on healing the cancer through chemo or through radiation therapy or through fasting or prayer or whatever it is you put your faith into, and that ends up satisfying that subconscious darkness, that ends up putting enough light on that subconscious darkness so that the cancer goes into remission. That can happen through conventional or unconventional means. But that thing that's lurking in your psyche is what has to be healed or defeated, or whatever metaphor you want to use, right? That's what's important. That's what you're trying to get at. We're talking about spiritual healing. We're talking about psychological and emotional issues. These are metaphorical. Now, can a metaphor kill you? From a shamanic point of view, absolutely it can. A metaphor can kill you, right? Guilt can kill you. You ever heard the term, oh, my guilt is just eating me up inside? The guilt was just eating me up inside. Because it literally will. It literally will. If you are holding a secret in, or you are, or you have something that you secretly feel guilty for, some unresolved issue that you just feel like you cannot admit to, or you cannot forgive yourself for, or you can't forgive somebody else for, that will literally become the thing that kills you. Maybe it'll be a cancer, maybe it'll be a tumor, maybe it'll be a general systemic cancer, maybe it'll be something like emphysema, maybe it'll be something will go bad with your liver, maybe your heart, maybe you'll have a heart attack, maybe you'll have a hardening of the arteries, maybe you'll have an embolism or a stroke. Who knows what it will be, but it will be something, right? Because it's always something, right? If you truly don't think that your thoughts have an impact on your health, then you're not using your mind. You're not being logical, right? If you care about yourself, if you love yourself, if you don't have any reason to wish yourself harm, then you're going to do the things that you need to do to be healthy. If you don't have those feelings, if you feel actually that you're a piece of crap and you really don't deserve to live, and that nobody really likes you, and that you really don't have any friends, and you don't know why you even go on another day, well, are you going to do the things you need to do to take care of yourself, or are you going to just sit in front of the TV while you eat a gallon of ice cream? Because, I mean, that feels good. It feels good to eat a gallon of ice cream. Ice cream isn't judgmental. It tastes good and it makes you feel good. Sure, you eat enough of it over a long enough period of time, it's probably going to kill you, but it's going to feel good while you're killing yourself, and at least it won't feel bad. At the very least, it won't feel bad. It may not even feel good after a while, but at least you won't feel bad. And that's really a shame. That's terrible. I really, there are people that live that way. and there's people that die that way. And it just depends on how those negative feelings, how that negative self-talk, or those guilty feelings, or stressful and traumatic memories that you stuff down inside and that you don't actually actively think about. In fact, you actively try not to think about them. You know they're there, you're aware of them, you just don't want to even think about them though. But you end up thinking about them, you end up having dreams about them, you end up having nightmares about them. They are always occupying your thoughts on some level of the day, in one way or another. And when you catch yourself thinking about them, you'll push it down and you'll try to block it out. But they're there, and you expend a whole bunch of energy in trying to keep that part of yourself walled off from the rest of your consciousness, and it's debilitating. It stresses you out. It increases the amount of stress hormones and cortisol that's flowing through your bloodstream at all hours of the day and night. It makes you more likely to do like harmful behavior to yourself, addictive behavior, behavior that's unhealthy. You know, it's just it's a clear case of your thoughts create your reality. It's absolutely true when it comes to your body. We can argue about whether or not your thoughts create the reality of the world, the greater world around you. But I think it's pretty much, in my opinion, just my opinion, it's pretty much established fact that your thoughts are what determine your health, right? If you love yourself, and you want to live a long life, and you think that life is great, no matter what you do to your body, you're going to live a long time, you're going to be healthy. Yet there are people that have a terrible outlook on life. They hate life. They think life's terrible and that life sucks. They don't have anything good to say about their life. They think that they're cursed. And even people that are like that are very careful about their diet. They're vegetarians, or they're very careful about the kinds of things, and they don't eat white bread even, or some things like that, and they'll exercise. But even people that are very fastidious about their diet and exercise, these people will die young. They'll die in their 40s and in their 50s. Why? Because they didn't like life, and their subconscious mind got the message. It's like, oh, you don't like to be alive. Okay, well, I'll take care of that for you. And boom, dead and gone. Dead and gone. So, we are starting to find out as a culture, and in fact globally, an entire civilization of all of human civilization is coming to the awareness at approximately the same time that our beliefs about reality really do shape our reality. Now, are they exclusive? Does it exclusively shape our reality? I don't know. But it's in my experience that to a large degree, yeah, everything. Your thoughts shape everything that happens to you in reality. And, I think that one of the things that sets a person apart as a shaman or a sorcerer or a wizard or a witch is that these people recognize that thoughts and imagination and how you interact with the world, the words that you use, the words that you speak when you speak about yourself, the words that you speak when you speak about others, these are all acts of magic. These are all acts of putting your intention and your will out into the universe. And they affect your thoughts, they affect the thoughts of those around you, and our ideas, what we communicate to each other, are also viral in nature. So not only when you speak your thoughts aloud, not only do other people hear them, but then those people will have a tendency to speak those thoughts as if they were their own to other people. So your ideas are viral. They infect others and they spread. And so the more you speak your ideas, the farther your ideas will spread. this is a notion that is quite provable and observable in magic. And although there is a tenet in magic that one must keep silent about your magic, there is in fact a weird sort of corollary where, yes, you don't want to speak about your magic, but if you can make people aware of a symbol that is associated with your intent, even if they don't know what its meaning is, in fact, especially if they don't know what its meaning is, it will have the effect of magnifying the reach and the power of your magic, because it will now have entered into the subconscious minds of more than just yourself. It'll have entered into the cultural subconscious at some point and will spread even farther. Now, I think that there's a limitation to that sort of thing, because symbols without any kind of clear meaning end up becoming muddled. People assign meaning to them, they get confused with other things, or they just lose any sort of power that they might have as a symbol and just kind of become like a generic, just like a mysterious thing, like the peace sign. Nobody really knows where the peace sign came from, and nobody really even knows why it means peace. It's just been associated with it. Just like the cross has been associated with Christianity and the pentagram has been associated with magic and Satanism, even though those symbols have been used by many different cultures and many different religions other than those, that's still what they're mostly associated with today. So if you're going to put a symbol out there, I think it would be much more effective to have it linked to a distinctive meaning, a brand, if you will. You know, you see the golden arches, you know what they mean. It means McDonald's. McDonald's means hamburgers and French fries. I mean, yes, there's other things there too, but the main thing people think of when they think McDonald's, they think McDonald's, hamburgers, and French fries. So, as far as symbols and magic go, and if you want your magic to go further, you want it to, in fact, get lodged in people's subconscious minds. You create what you'd call a hyper sigil, which is a work of art that has heavy symbolism mixed into it that embeds your intent in the art itself. And then when people see the art and understand the message behind the art, it will inevitably give life to that artwork on some level, in not just your subconscious, but in the subconscious of everyone who sees it. There are comic book artists that have used this in order to make themselves famous, Grant Morrison being the prime example. He used this principle to make himself very rich and very famous by putting himself as the main character in at least one of his comic series, The Invisibles. So a lot of the things that happened to that character in the comic ended up happening to him in real life. So it does cut both ways. So please be careful when you become an archetype or try to give life to your servitor and actually embody it. You know, it cuts both ways. So be careful, people. Magic is not for magic isn't for pussies. You have to understand. And shamanism is for warriors, right? Whether you consider yourself a shaman or a sorcerer, it's basically the same thing. You're dealing with non-physical things. That doesn't mean that they're not real. It just means they're non-physical, which means in some ways they're more dangerous, right? Are demons real? Of course demons are real. They're just not physical. And are demons evil? Depends. Some are, I imagine. And so are some angels. And did God create the demons? I don't think that, well, let's put it this way. I think that gods and demons are created by the same source, and not necessarily the one you think. So I, here's a I, in a nutshell version of how I think reality works. At least the non-physical part of reality. See, I think that God is everything. That the totality of all that exists, both seen and unseen, both physical and non-physical, the past, the present, the future, and all possible variations of those are all contained within the totality of all that is. And that totality of all that is contains life, right? Because we're part of it too. So it would make sense that there's consciousness that has to be greater than ours. There has to be a consciousness greater than ours. We can't be the greatest consciousness there is, because we can imagine consciousness greater. And if we can imagine it, then maybe it's just a flaw of human design, that if we imagine something to exist, then we naturally assume that it must. Because how could we imagine something that couldn't possibly exist? So here's the thing, though. If God is everything, and God is not a person, so God doesn't have a personality, and God isn't a thing, God is everything. So if I reach out with my emotions and I reach out with my imagination, I imagine a being that is an all-powerful being that I could speak to and interact with, my imagination will give me one. And if I interact with that imaginary figure in my imagination long enough, and even start talking as if that imaginary figure is here with me right now, if I do that consistently and persist in that, I will start having experiences of that imaginary being responding to me. I will start having visions. I will start hearing voices. I will start having dreams that will point to a communication, a two-way communication with this supposedly imaginary being that did not exist before I started talking to it and named it, right? Is this how all gods are created? Is this how all demons are made? No. Some are made with a lot less intention. Some are made as a result of pain and torture and psychological disturbance and happenstance of painful or particularly pleasurable, intense experiences, and sometimes they leave a impression on the astral plane. And again, I'm using the term astral plane. This is metaphorical. I don't literally believe that there's a plane of existence called the astral plane. This is just a way of saying your imagination, but being distinct and saying that this is something that reflects a place that seems to be a real place, even if it is not a physical place. It's just that since it is infinitely malleable, the only thing that you can really use to describe it is in terms that have been used to describe it in the occult. One can also call it the underworld. One can call it, in shamanism, it's the underworld. It's the lower realm. It's the underworld, or it could be the middle realm. The middle realm is like the upper astral, where it's basically a subtler form of this world. It's where you go when you do remote viewing, or you actually travel somewhere to go and see someone or view something in this world. That would be like the middle realm. And then there's the upper realm, where the gods and the ascendant masters and the enlightened souls are located. So essentially, again, that's metaphor, though. Again, that's based on some experiences that some people have when they experience a shamanic state and go through shamanic rituals. They experience either a kind of an underworld or a kind of like parallel place to where the physical world will be, or they will experience some like a paradise-like world of light or a world of crystals. There'll be either the earthy underworld where it's like a wild jungle kind of place that isn't really a parallel of our world. It's sort of like the natural world without humans kind of thing. But again, it's malleable to your imagination, and these are all metaphorical. You can use shamanism without even having artificial designations like this. These are just useful for when you're actually going into a ritual and having some intent on the kind of experience you wish to have, the kind of helper spirit that you wish to communicate with. You wish to communicate with a nature spirit, then you probably want to go to an underworld journey, right? Where you'd either talk to a power animal or a representative of the elemental kingdom, one of the four elemental creatures of the world of the elements. Or, you know, maybe you could go on a parallel journey to the fairy realm, which is related to the underworld, but it's a separate realm from the underworld. Again, these are all things that are mythic in nature. And understand that imagination, myth, fiction, these are all the same things. If you want to go on a journey where you want to talk to Gandalf or you want to consult with Frodo, this is something that can be done with shamanism. You want to go and talk to a dragon. You want to talk to a griffin. You want to consult with Dumbledore. You want to consult with Julius Caesar. Just because some of these are fictional characters doesn't mean that they don't have a spiritual reality to them. They do. They do because they're part of human awareness. They're part of human consciousness. And anything that's a part of human consciousness gains a reality to it. You have a dream. When you have a dream, many times your dream is populated with people other than just you. You're in the dream, you're seeing the dream from your point of view, right? As if it's happening in your normal waking consciousness. So things are happening from your point of view. Yet you're seeing these other people. Are those other people just background props? Or could you walk up to them and hold a conversation with them? You can walk up to them and hold a conversation with them. Have you ever had a dream that you were talking to your best friend or talking to a relative that had passed away and you're having a conversation with them, and it never occurs to you that it's not who you think it is? You have a dream of your dead father and have a conversation with him. You don't wake up and say, that was weird. I wonder what aspect of my psyche my dead dad was representing to me. No. I mean, unless you're a trained psychiatrist or a psychologist, you might think that. But viscerally, inside, where you feel it in your emotions, you're going to say, I had a dream and I talked to my dad, right? I mean, on some level, you're going to say, yeah, it was probably just a dream. But you're going to feel like you talked to him. You're going to feel like you talked to that person. Because in a dream, it doesn't feel like a dream. It doesn't seem like a dream. And they seem like the person that you remember them to be. So is that fake? Is it unreal? Just because it happened in a dream? I don't think so. I think that there's a level of reality to it that, again, it's not physical, it's not material, but it's still real. And I think that that's what is at the core of shamanism and the core of much of Western ritual magic, is this idea that the imagination is directly tied to the real world, and that it's actually what gives birth to it. It's the ground from which reality springs, right? You plant a seed in your mind, you plant a seed in your imagination, and you keep on going back and imagining what that desire is, and you imagine it in greater and greater detail. It's going to eventually emerge and come to fruition in the physical world. That's the basis of magic. That's the basis of alchemy, too. It's the basis of shamanism. Something that gets done in the underworld, something that gets done in the imagination, something that gets done in the astral plane. It comes to fruition in the physical plane at some point, right? So that's really what shamans do. That's what I do. I do that to help myself in my life. I do that to help friends, and I do that to help clients. And the reason why I use cannabis, and I'll just in summation, the reason why I use cannabis is, number one, it's something that is approachable. Most people at least feel that cannabis is safer than alcohol. And many people are open to trying it if it's in a safe environment with somebody who's experienced. Many more people understand the medical benefits of cannabis and the emotional and psychological benefits to cannabis as well. What people are not aware of are the spiritual benefits of cannabis and how cannabis can help put you into a state of peace of mind, which will allow you to very easily get in touch with aspects of your soul that you keep guarded. And because you keep guarded, you're imprisoning energy. You're imprisoning energy that could be used to help you in your life. You're imprisoning power that could be used to help you get out of bad situations in your life, but you're hobbling yourself. You're deliberately dumbing yourself down. You're deliberately, like, it's like you're Superman, but you're wearing jewelry made out of kryptonite because you're afraid of your own power. You're afraid of what you might do if you have access to all the power that you're entitled to. And so because you believe that you're fundamentally bad, that there's something wrong with you, that you've got some kind of flaw, you hobble yourself, you keep yourself down, you keep yourself low, even if you think you're trying to do your best to be your best. You can't be your best because you got chains around your ankles and you got weights on your wrists that are keeping you down, and you're not even aware that you're the one that put them there. And that's what shamanism helps you realize, helps you recognize, and it helps you free yourself from. Cannabis isn't a crutch, it's a tool. It's a tool that helps just like any other tool that helps. Just like hypnosis is a tool, and it helps. Neurolinguistic programming, being able to understand hypnotic language and how language affects your consciousness, is a tool. Spell work is a tool for those who use magic in their practice. Working with entities. Entities are a tool, whether you believe that the entities have a reality outside of your own conscious awareness or not, doesn't matter. The fact is that working with disincarnate entities, whether it's working with them or trying to remove them when they are being problematic, is definitely a useful tool in the arsenal of, the shaman. Again, whether you consider yourself a shaman or not, the idea is that these are powerful metaphors that, if you integrate them into your spiritual practice, can very much help you attain a life in which you are more in congruence with what you're supposed to be here to do, right? Whether that leads you towards enlightenment or not, I suppose, is up to you. So with that, I'm going to close out this first show. Hey, if you use cannabis as part of your spiritual practice, or you're just interested in it and you have some insights you'd like to bring to the show, hey, drop me a line, send me a direct message, or just drop a comment under this video, and I'll get in contact with you, and we'll see if you can be on the show, if we can set up a little interview. Until next time, I hope all of you have a most splendiferous rest of your day, and I am going to go and spend some time with my wonderful children, and I hope you have something that brings you joy.